Welcome everybody to episode number 4, Kickin Bass Podcast. As always, my panel with us today is Big Joe, Johnny Phoenix, myself, I am Byron. Today is the Ballin through the holidays on a budget special. With that starting off here, I do want to say one quick special thing off the topic tonight. I know we have some hunters that listen to this show, and I was actually supposed to be elk hunting this week and wasn't able to attend just for other obligations, and they got in the way. And I wanted to bring light to a organization here in Arizona. It's called the Changed by Nature Outdoors. And what they do is, for people like myself who aren't able to use our tags, and instead of surrendering your tag to Game and Fish, you can surrender your tag to Changed by Nature. And what they will do is they'll take that tag with one of their guides that volunteer for them, and they take a vet out hunting on your tag. If you have point guard through Arizona Game and Fish, they still give you your they still release your point back to you. So it's just like surrendering the tag to Game and Fish, and you're helping a vet out that get outdoors and maybe help somebody else out that's not able to get out there on their own.
What a kick-ass idea! That is really cool.
Justin and the people at Changed by Nature, they're really good people. They're doing a great service for the vets out there, and I personally didn't know that was an option, and I'm glad I found out. The nice lady at Game and Fish kind of turned me on to them, and I hooked up with them, and hopefully somebody's going to bag a big-ass bull up in Unit 22 with my tag. So
right on. That's good.
If you're a hunter and you're not able to attend your hunt, look them up. They can definitely use the support. They're on Facebook, web, all the good typical places.
Good job, B. Every day should be Veterans Day.
It should be, absolutely. So, starting off tonight, we are going to start, basically our idea with this show is to give people an idea of what's out there. More and more people are buying firearm and firearm-related products for loved ones for the holidays. And just trying to help out with a little bit of a buyer's guide, so to speak, of what's out there at an affordable price. If you notice on our Facebook site a couple weeks ago, we had a poll for if you were buying a firearm for a loved one. Would it be from 1 to 500 or 500 and up? And we actually had the perfect sequence. We had 100 votes, and 78% of those were 500 and under, which you would probably assume. Not a lot of people can afford to go out and buy a $500 or plus firearm for a gift. So we're going to start off tonight with Taurus's offerings for the that category. And Johnny, what are you thinking on what we got here?
Well, you know I'm a huge fan of Taurus as far as their latest products are concerned. I personally don't have any experience with the little Spectrum 380, but you know I've done reviews on both the G2C and the G3. I think they're a great entry-level firearm. I think they're a good firearm, period. You know, at the end of the day, you try to get the most bang for your buck, and like you said, not everybody can just go out there and just hammer down $500, $1,500 for a firearm. But I believe that every American needs to be armed. Any American that cares about their own personal security, that doesn't want to go ahead and rely on other people to take care of their safety and security of their family. So when you take a look at Taurus, you have to take a look at what they've done recently, and you really dig into it. It's really started with the Taurus Millennium, the series right before the G2C. That's when they started making a pretty good comeback as far as quality and production. The guns coming out in decent finished fit. You're not gonna get a 1911 style high-end look on the gun, but they work really well. They're ergonomic and they function fine. I don't remember having a failure with either the G2C or the G3. What about you, Joe?
I haven't had a failure with either or. The Spectrum, that's a good little pocket carry. Better design than the TCP. Feels more comfortable. It's good for a woman who wants a gun for her purse. G3 full. It's got small, medium, and large right there. The full size, the G3, that's probably one of my favorite on the table right there. That's a great gift idea. Way under, was it $259-ish?
Yeah,
Plus MSRP is
$259.
like what, three?
That's what I saw.
$299, I believe, is
Yeah.
what the MSR is on it.
That's a great price. What would you call it? The budget Glock.
Oh yeah, it's just basically it's a Glock 19.
Yeah.
You know, it's a Glock 19 for half the price.
And you guys just reviewed that last month, and
Yeah.
you both had great things to say about it. I mean,
You take a look at what's out there in that budget, and I would challenge anybody to try to come up with a gun that's going to be comparably priced to the G2C and the G3. Yeah, there's some close, and we'll throw in a couple samples that may approach that, but for the most part, the ergonomics on these guns fit my hand perfectly. And you know, everybody's gonna have different hands, but at the end of the day, it's gonna be tough to beat that price.
Not only that, the Taurus has one of the best warranty programs and the lifetime warranty. I mean, I don't ever have any issues sending anything back from them. We really don't send much of them, considering the amount of ones that come into the public. I mean, that's probably one of the most guns sold. Yeah. Probably in the U.S.
Yeah, the G2 is probably
G2. Yeah,
I mean, you just take a look at YouTube. Don't just look at our reviews. You know, we always encourage people to look at everything. You know, just like you guys, we look at things when we want to purchase something for ourselves. We go out and we do a little shopping on YouTube. You know, it's not one opinion, it's not 10 opinions, it's not 100 opinions. They're literally, you know, close to 1,000 videos out there on the Taurus series, the G2C and the G3. And, you know, it doesn't matter where you look, they're always about the same price, you know, and it's not just me, Joe, or anybody else. There's a lot of people out there that have a lot of experience with these guns that find them to be very affordable and very, you know, non-troublesome, reliable.
Especially with that price point, you can get people out of buying, you know, the High Points, Jimenez Arms, Cobras. They're not that far off from there, especially that Spectrum. Spectrum is like close to, was it 139? Usually right around there that they sell.
Yeah.
That's cheap.
But you know, the other thing is, in today's environment, you know, a lot of people they're two income families where you have a wife and a husband, and they're separated during the day, doing work or whatever, and it's becoming very common to have both husband and wife, you know, spouses or significant other, be armed. They're individually armed, and when you buy a gun like a Glock, you know, and don't get me wrong, I'm never gonna bash Glocks. I have them myself, and one of my favorite guns. What happens with buying a Glock is you're spending close to $600 by the time you're done with taxes and maybe a holster or something else that comes with it, or ammo, and that's two of these guns. And for the price of one Glock, somebody who's on a budget, they can arm themselves and they can arm their significant other. You can have a gun in your home. If you're single, you have a gun in your home. You can have a gun on you, you know, and it just makes it a lot more reasonable to get into, you know, protecting yourself and protecting your home, protecting your family. You don't have to spend a ton of money to get reliability. These guns are very affordable.
absolutely. All right. Well, Johnny, you might notice that that is not Joe.
I'm not Joe.
Joe had to leave on a family emergency. He's got to take his little boy to the ER, so we hope little Joe's all right. But in Joe's place, we have Brad Lines, who is a rep with Jeff Robles and Associate, who is also our ATI rep, which is kind of good because it really fit into our next segment, which is on ATI.
Yep.
So,
and if you've been following the review channel, we're going to drop a video which has a complete explanation of who Brad is, what he does, and the products that he brought out. He was so kind to bring out for us to test. We had a good time, great time. Thank you once again, man. We really appreciate it. And this is a perfect time. You know, it kind of coincided with what Byron and I were talking about as far as budget guns. If you take a look at this table, what you see here is a conglomeration of guns that, if you look at them, if you want to get into these types of guns, they're usually not, they're not going to be under $500. You know, you take a look at a replica of a World War II gun, the MP40, caliber 9mm, right? Mm-hmm. And we've got some 1911s, and we've got a MP5 22 caliber replica, and then we also have an something's really unique, which I had a great time shooting. It's an AR platform 410 shotgun. And it's none of these items when you're looking to get into 1911s, when you're looking to get AR-15s, unless you're a builder and you like to tinker with your own guns and build guns from scratch, or you're not ever going to be able to afford an MP40 on a normal budget, and you're definitely not going to be able to afford even a clone of a 9mm MP5 gun on a normal budget, on a family budget. So this is a great way for you to be able to get into these types of guns, have guns that are collectible, they're fun, they're good to look at. You know, unlike the guns that we previously offered in the previous segment, they're not guns that are necessarily, you know, practical from a practical, just plain old practical. There's another nuance to them, which is collectability and fun to shoot. Yeah, Brad, you want to jump in and talk about these things?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, we did a shoot a couple weeks ago. Really had a good time out there, and appreciate you guys coming out and just getting a chance to go through these, because there's, you know, the proof's in the pudding. When you get out on the range and you actually shoot this stuff, it's not, you know, you can sit here and look at it in gun shop, and you go through and you can check the actions and feel the triggers, and you can manipulate the firearm. But until you really get on the range and you get some trigger time with them, you don't really know what you're buying into. So it was awesome that you guys could come out and do the review. ATI is a company that's in South Carolina. They manufacture their own firearms, and they do import some of their own firearms as well. The German sport guns are the primary one of the big pieces of that import business, and GSGs are known for their mostly 22 long rifle, and they have today. We've currently got the GSG, the Firefly, which is a 22 long rifle pistol, and they come in 5 different colors, threaded and unthreaded barrels.
And for folks that don't know what a Firefly is, they're modeled after a SIG P226, right? They're similar
Mosquito.
in
The SIG Mosquito. Unfortunately, SIG had they might have had some issues with them running,
right.
and SIG chose not to go forward with that. So ATI now has it. They've fixed. They put some better springs. They actually took every part of that firearm that was maybe questionable on some of the reliability, and they fixed it. And I can tell you, I've done public shoots of those where we'll put thousands and thousands of rounds through them, and they run great. They run as good as any semi-auto 22 is gonna run, which in some cases is almost determined as based on how clean your ammo is. If you have rock bottom cheap 22 ammo, it's sometimes they don't run super clean. We ran with CCI mini mags, and man, I don't think we had one failure out of all the shooting we did with the Firefly and the 1911s.
Oh yeah, for sure. We had a great time shooting these guns, and I'm gonna jump in and just name a product that's unique to this line that I really enjoyed shooting, which is the AR Platform 410 shotgun. I had a great time shooting this thing. I'm not really sure what the purpose is. You know, you're gonna use it to hunt, you're gonna use it for home defense, do you wanna use it for whatever purpose you wanna have it for? For me, if I were to buy this gun, it'd just be for complete fun, because, you know, I couldn't stop grinning. It's just fun.
That's a blast.
Yeah, if you're familiar with the AR-15 manual of arms, this gun runs exactly like all the switches, trigger, everything, the manipulation of the gun's exactly like the AR-15. The cool part about it is it just shoots 410 shot shells.
What's the kick like on that Phoenix?
Virtually nil.
Really?
You know, I mean, yeah, there's kick to it, but you know, I'm accustomed shooting heavier guns, and this gun, it's fun. To me, it's the equivalent of shooting like maybe a light 38 special load in a handgun, as it translates to a rifle. You know, so yeah, it just looks cool. You know, and it's something that's unique. And you know, I like firearms not just for the practicality of them. You know, and I think this is what ATI, this line of guns, really offers. Is, you a lot of people, you know, doing Christmas, man, I don't want to get a practical gift. You know, I don't want a pair of socks in gun terms. Right. You know, I want to get stuff I don't have. I own a lot of guns. I don't have a 410, you know, AR platform shotgun.
Mm-hmm. You know, the thing I think that's really cool about the ATI line, and you know, for a young family, you know, if you've got mom, dad, and a kid or two, you know, it's cool in the fact that they're styled after the guns the kids see, you know, in the Call of Duty and the games out there. You know, they can say, oh, this is you know, this is the MP5, or you know, this is the AR-15. You know, and it doesn't completely break the bank for a, you know, if a family of four wants to get into shooting sports. Oh, yeah. It's not like they have to take a second mortgage out to do it. You know, I mean, it's very affordable and fun. And you know, you've got the options where, you know, dad can have the 45, and if the kid wants to have a gun that looks like dad's, you've got the 1911 with the 22 caliber.
Yep.
Absolutely.
That he can be right next to him plinking away.
Mm-hmm. And I got to tell you, you know, for the MP5 is an iconic gun. You know, when people think about Christmas movies, holiday movies, one of the first movies that pops off on my blog is always, oh yeah, you know, the Die Hard movie. Right. You know, and what's more iconic during the holidays than, you know, when you're sitting around watching movies? That's the fun stuff. When I was a kid, I'd die. Man, if that 22 was available when I was a kid, I'd have died for it.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know? And my dad got me a 22. He got me a Ruger 1022. Mm-hmm. They're cool guns. They're great guns. They don't look
but
like
that looks a lot cooler. You know,
Yeah.
flow suppressor on it.
You know?
And
Yeah.
Not everything has to have a purpose. Sometimes it's just about enjoyment of things. And speaking of which, one of my favorite guns out of this whole bunch to shoot was the 1911 and 9mm. Mm-hmm. And because of the weight of the gun, as a 1911 platform, and it's all steel construction, it's heavy. And we were shooting just 115 grain, you know, target loads. And man, that thing literally, to me, felt like I was shooting probably like a 25 or a 22.
Yeah.
There was just virtually no perceived recoil. And a lot of people don't like shooting 45s because of the recoil. Mm-hmm. You know, and you know, a lot of the polymer guns today, they're made to be lighter. You know, and you're going to feel a lot more of that 45 in a polymer gun than you are going to feel in an all-steel gun.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the nice thing about 9mm is obviously it's less recoil. It's going to be cheaper than the 45, and you know, the just when you take those two things and you throw it into a 1911 platform, you can still kind of, you know, you get the cool factor of a 1911 for those that like that nostalgic firearm, but you've got, you know, a gun that's that's cleaner, or it's less recoil, more manageable recoil, and obviously more affordable to shoot.
And quite frankly, you know, usually when you go down in size in a 1911, whether it be caliber or going to a commander length, mm-hmm. or smaller, you know, pocket gun size, I didn't really expect it to work as well as it did.
Right.
Yeah. Typically speaking, you know, especially at an entry level price,
right.
Yeah, they got race guns at 9mm that are in 1911 platforms that run really well. Mm-hmm. You know, but you're going to spend $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 on one of those guns.
Right.
To get a gun that is a 1911 that shoots really soft, it teaches you really good shooting mechanics, by the
mm-hmm.
way. Yeah, 1911s, the grip, the angle, and just, you know, the weight of the gun, it just kills all of that perceived recoil, and it takes all that flinching away from
mm-hmm.
an inexperienced shooter. Mm-hmm. So, and especially the fact that it works, which is what I was really impressed by at that price range. It's hard to beat.
Right. And, you know, one thing I didn't mention, you know, when we were talking about ATI is that everything that ATI has, I mean, the entire lineup of ATI, they have a lifetime guarantee against manufacturer's defects on their products. And, you know, if there is a problem with a product, if, you know, you can literally get a hold of, contact ATI, and they'll take care of the customer by either fixing or replacing the product. And Byron and I, we've done a few. We haven't done a ton. When you consider the volume of ATI that you have moved through the shop, I would say it's a very, very, very small percentage. But all manufacturers have some defects. It's just the nature of industry.
It's a mechanical object built by a human. I mean, there's no perfection. I mean,
right.
So
and to be completely fair, the MP40, we had a rough time initially getting it to run properly, but once we figured it out, it ran fine. And what you got to remember is this is a reproduction of a gun that was manufactured for World War II. And they changed. It's not the same gun. It's a completely different gun than the MP40 was built for war. This is a replica piece that's meant to be enjoyed as a nostalgic flavor for reenactors, that kind of thing. So yeah, you're gonna run into a few issues in the beginning where you have to break the gun in, and that's the thing. It's a break-in period for a gun it's not a military-built gun that's had thousands and thousands of hours on the battlefield, and it's built as a gun that's for entertainment.
Right.
And would I take this thing as a home defense weapon? Probably not my first choice. It can be used that way, but when I look at something like this, I just remind folks, hey, look, man, it's a gun for fun.
Right.
And when you have a fun gun like you have a kit car or something, you're gonna have to do a little work on it.
Well, and for me, when just the MP40 and the iconic World War II era firearms, I mean, we don't buy M1 Garands because they're awesome for home defense. It's a piece of history, and that's what you could do with the MP40 is you get a 9mm pistol that it is reminiscence of the European conflict, and
it's something for your buddies to gawk over when you pull it out at the range. That's what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what's cool about that too is you can there is a folding stock you can add to that. Now,
if you want an SBR,
if you want to make it an SBR, that is an option that you can do. So most people don't. I mean, but I know a few guys that have, and they're like, hey, look, if I'm going to go all in on this, I'm just going to go all in, and I'm going to have it authentic, or as authentic as I can. So,
and just for folks who are tuning in that don't understand what that SBR term means, you can't put a stock on this without getting an ATF or the ATF stamp. And you have to apply for that stamp first before you just jump on the internet, buy a part that's considered illegal, but not illegal, but it has to be registered with the government before you apply it. You get your stamp back. You can purchase the stock ahead of time, but you can't put it on the gun until you get your stamp back.
Right.
And I will say, one of my staff here at the store just did an SBR, 23 days start to finish.
Wow, that's pretty good.
That's
outstanding.
It's amazing.
That's amazing. Yeah. That's fast.
Yeah.
I'd like to see how many more of those come back. You know what I mean? Whether that's a trend or it was just a lucky, pull out of a hat.
We had a customer of ours that was saying that he was getting them back in 3 to 4 weeks, and one of the kids here at the shop ran one through on a AR-15 the other day, and 23 days start to finish.
That's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Speaking of which,
being able to do that, the time frame was always the detractor from that before.
Huge. It wasn't $200 because people were willing to cough that up.
Yeah, I'm willing to cough with $200 all day long if I can get a stamp back in 3 weeks.
Absolutely.
That's a no-brainer.
Absolutely.
I'll do it every time.
Actually, what are we doing after the podcast?
And if you look, we have a .22 caliber 1911 gun with a suppressed barrel on it, or not. A barrel that's ready to accept a suppressor. It's threaded for it. And we shot Brad's. Brad has one. And Chris was out there shooting it too. We had a great time shooting that thing. I think that thing literally felt like a pellet gun. It sounded like a pellet gun, felt like a pellet gun, and that's the kind of fun that you can get into, because if you normally take a look at a full-size 1911 45 or 9mm caliber, you're gonna spend $400 or $500 even on these guns for one of those samples. Then you got another $200 on the tax stamp. So after everything's done, you're about $700-800 into it. And then you talk about the ammo, because when you take it out, you're gonna have a lot of fun shooting it, and you're gonna spend up a lot on ammo. To get a .22 caliber gun that's shaped and mirrors the looks of a 1911.
And it's a very attractive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you throw the suppressor on there, man. The thing looks cool.
Yeah, it's total James Bond. I mean, and the 1911 22, the German sport gun 1911. And I say this all the time, but it is literally one of my favorite guns to shoot out of all the guns that I own, because it's a gun that's super forgiving. It's laser beam accurate and operates exactly the same as a 1911, your standard 1911s. But when you throw a can, you know, and I have a Ruger suppressor that's on that, you know, that's a $300 gun. It's a $300 can and a $200 tax stamp, and you know, $800 wrapped up in that whole system. Just if you're just looking at it just as that system, and it is easily the funnest gun that I have to shoot, because it's Hollywood quiet. It is truly that whisper quiet.
All I heard was the action sliding back and forth.
Exactly, and you actually can hear the bullet hitting the paper and penetrating it. That's the cool part.
Yeah.
You hear it hit the paper. That's cool.
It's a great trainer. You know, if you got somebody who's recoil sensitive, you have somebody who's, you know, not a larger frame, you know, a little slight frame, or so whatever, you know, as we get older, man, I get older. You know, I'm 52. At some point, that gravity is going to take its course, and things that are larger are going to hurt to shoot. You know, I'm starting to feel some of it now. But, you know, I know that when I get older, I'm going to want to shoot 22s for recreation. You know, and, you know, buy 1,000 rounds of 22 for what?
Cheap.
Yeah, cheap. Dirt cheap. And kids that want to shoot, you know, when you take young children out and start teaching them about responsibility of firearms and safety of firearms, and you start teaching them marksmanship, the one thing that kids want to do is they want to keep shooting. And you start throwing in 9mm 45, it's going to cost a lot of money.
Right.
With 22, you know, it's a great way to start a young lady or young man into the sport. And, you know, it's affordable all around. It's a great package.
Well, and I've done several, you know, shoots for the public. And, you know, there was a shoot we would do in California, and we would get literally thousands and thousands of people every day. And so many times when somebody comes up and they've got Johnny, and little Johnny's wanting to shoot a gun for the first time, that is a great option. But what's funny is, I don't know how many times I've seen a kid come up to the line. It's maybe his first or second time shooting, or he's never shot a pistol, but he shot a rifle. And they can go, and we'll set up clay pigeons on a stand. And I've seen kid literally shoot 10 rounds, and they will be accurate 7 to 8. You know, they'll hit the clay pigeon 7 to 8 times. And for a kid that's just like figuring out how to point a pistol, that's impressive. And I've just seen it time and time and time again. And that's what's so cool about that right. firearm in my mind, is just seeing it firsthand. You know,
it's video games.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, how many times?
No, I'm dead serious.
Yeah.
It absolutely is video games, that their dexterity has improved so much over what we had when we were children from video games. And I'm trust me, I'm not by any way, shape, or form supporting video games, because I think they're the devil. Honestly, I do. I wish that we would stop selling them, but I think that they gain so much dexterity, hand-eye coordination from the video games that you know, it's like my boss's kid. You know, the first time we took him out shooting, I mean, the kid is like seriously scary with a rifle. I mean, he's pegging stuff 300, 400, 500 yards right off the cuff. You know, I mean, with no introduction to the weapon at all. He's just going out and drilling stuff. And you know, I've always told Eric, I said, make sure you keep recruiters away from that kid, man, because they see that, and he's on
doing some time in the military.
He's going to Pendleton or Paris Island in a hurry, you know.
Well, when he did at the shoot, he actually shot the GSG 16, and you know, Eric said, yeah, he's a really good shot. And you know, he got up to the line, and you know, dads can be proud, right? Dads can be proud, but after he rang the bell 10 times with 10 shots, I was like, yeah, there might be something to this, you know.
Yeah.
Well, you think about, you know, the reason why people are, they have adverse feelings about firearms when they not play with them, but when they have experience with them, most of the people I know that have bad experiences, somebody takes them out, and for fun, first time shooter, they'll stick a huge gun in their hand, like a 44 Magnum or 308, 30-06. And, it's a joke. It's a bad joke. It's a terrible way to introduce people to firearms. And, they just get that huge blast, huge recoil, and then they hate it from then on.
You're scared.
Yeah. And with platforms like this, I'm telling you, probably the harshest shooting of these guns was maybe the MP40, just because it doesn't have a shoulder stock, and you're shooting it from a funky angle. But other than that, that's the only thing that accentuated the recoil. Everything else was, fun to shoot, even the 45s.
Yeah, and that's the 410 was the one that I think I'm the most surprised by. That it's extremely soft. It's an extremely soft. I mean, because typically, 410 shotguns, especially in single shot platforms, are extremely light. And typically, just with kids that grow up hunting,
kick like a mule.
They kick like a mule for an 8-year-old kid, and that's a gun that obviously, being a semi-auto loading shotgun, it's going to help with the recoil. But there's enough grip, and there's enough grip that you can really control the firearm, but it also doesn't. There's no recoil.
Well, also you've got the adjustability of the stock. And I think a lot of times when you got a 12 or 14-inch length of pull on a normal single, those hunting shotguns are they're going to have a long length of pull, and it's going to be tough for a person who's smaller in frame with shorter arms to be able to get a really good grip on the gun.
Right.
And that also helps in perceived recoil. And this gun, because it's adjustable, I popped the stock out further for myself, but other people are popping them in, so that helps in reducing the recoil, the felt recoil. And the only thing that you have to be careful with that gun is if you're used to slamming your mag in and tapping it with your 5.56, this gun does not require that. The magazine slides right in place, and the way the 410 shells fit in the magazine, if you slam it in there and jam the back of it, it's going to knock the shell out of the feed lips, and it's going to cause it to jam. So that's just user function, something you might want to think about in case you pick one up and you don't know what you're doing the first time, like I didn't know what I was doing the first time. You're just used to just slam that mag in, and it'll cause it to malfunction. But treat it just like a normal mag. Just grab it, push it in, it'll pop right back into place, and you're ready to go. Yeah.
One thing too is ATI offers a set of chokes. You can buy 3 different chokes for that firearm as well. So there's a lot of people that they grew up with a 410. That was their first gun, and
the 22.
Yeah, exactly. When you talk about shotguns, it's a lot of times it's a 410 or a 20 gauge, and for rifles, it's typically a 22. So this is something that someone can carry if you have that passion for 410s. I've got a couple myself at home, and they're a lot of fun, and it's something that you can. It's another way to utilize a 410 without it being an old, half antique looking
Montgomery Ward single shot.
Exactly. So it kind of modernizes the 410 hull, and it's cool. There's a lot of cool factor there.
And that is what I wanted to get across to a lot of the listeners and viewers, is that so oftentimes in today's modern world, you got a lot of people out there that are into the tactical look. You got a lot of people who are just straight up hunters or whatever. And, a lot of my friends, there's always, when I buy a gun, somebody always says, "What you get that for?" Or "What do you need that?" And to me, I'm a lover of firearms. I love all guns of any type. I don't need to have a purpose for anything. And Christmas is fun time. That's when I was a kid. Christmas was a time when you waited to get what you wanted, not what you needed. If you're gonna carry a gun for self-defense and you need a certain gun, that's a need. All of these guns from me, they cover the want part. I want a cheap, not cheap quality, but affordable 1911. I don't want to spend $1,500 on a Colt. I don't want to spend $1,800 on a Springfield operator. I don't need that. I'm not an operator. I'm just a normal guy. I like 1911s. I like shooting them. And I want to have a nice gun that I can have for an affordable price, that I can get into. And, you know, a lot of people nowadays, you know, 1911s are coming back in vogue. You know, there are a lot of 1911 manufacturers, but there are not a lot of affordable 1911 manufacturers. So this is a good way to get into it.
Well, and also there's a few manufacturers out there that make it very affordable, but they maybe don't run as well. And that's, I think, one thing that ATI has really done a great job of is making sure that that's, you know, they keep the prices good, but the gun's going to operate just because they do have a lifetime guarantee on that firearm. So they want it to run as much as you do.
Yeah, because the last thing you want to do is pull something out of your bag. You get halfway through the first magazine out the range, and you know you're done for the day. You know, there's no worse feeling than that.
Yeah, you know, whole day's done because your gun doesn't run.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but they've got that. You know, and they've got the 1911 in the 9mm and a 4.25 inch length, but then they do a full length in a 45. Then they do the commander length, and then there's the Titan, which is I believe it's a 3 3/4 inch.
It's very similar to the Colt Defender,
right?
In the looks, and I mean, it's got a skeleton hammer trigger. You know, it's an attractive looking gun. You know, and that's the thing is, that's another thing I want to bring about. I don't know if you can see and look, but from the looks of things, how these guns look. They look nice. You know, the fit and finish for the price is very nice. There are a lot of, like you said, there are other manufacturers of 1911 style guns, but the fit and finish is not always, you know. You take a look at these guns, they're attractive guns. Like that 1911 right there looks very much like a gun that you would see in a World War I, World War II reenactment. You know? Well,
to be honest with you, the 22, if I was not able to see the ATI logo, I would think Kimber, just by the look of it. Yeah. You know, and then that's important to have a good style along with the financial value of the weapon.
I mean, you want a gun that looks good.
Exactly.
You know, there are budget guns out there that, you know, they will not worry about the finish. You know, hey, we're just going to get a gun out at this price point. It'll run. People will take it out and to use them for tackle box guns. You know, and you know what I'm talking about. Guns that you purposely can just throw in a tackle box.
Don't care if it gets wet. Doesn't care if it gets scratched.
I know a guy with an AK like that.
Yeah, well, you know, it's an AK, right?
Right.
But, you know, these guns are, that's another thing about teaching kids about safety and responsibility in firearms. You know, my first gun was a 38 Special that my father gifted to me. I took care of that gun. And I want to make sure that the gun was always well oiled. It had a deep blue finish. You know, I didn't want to scratch it up. I didn't want to beat it up. And when you have a gun that looks nice to start with, you're not going to beat it up. You're not going to want to beat it up. Yeah, it's not a polymer. Yeah, that's another thing that's good about these 1911s. They're not polymer guns. A lot of people don't, you know, get into full frame metal guns, and when they shoot them, they realize, yeah, it's really nice to carry, but it sucks to shoot. And 1911s, you know, alleviate, like I said, a lot of that recoil. So I like it for that reason too.
Yeah, they're you know, I really can't say enough good about those. Yeah. It's you know, it's just such a fantastic gun. So.
Yeah, I think they did a really good job. You know, I think the GSG, the GSG 16, the MP5 looks really cool. You know, that's probably the coolest looking gun to me. The one that's most historically accurate is probably this MP40 look. You know, and the 1911s, they're just great starter guns for people who want to get into 1911s. And then there's nothing like this on the market that I know of. You know, the 410 AR-15 platform. It just, you wouldn't, I didn't even think it was 410 when he brought it out. I thought it was just another, it's like we're gonna shoot another AR. He goes, no, man, it's 410. You know, fun guns.
Yep. No, that is really, it's unique. It's a really unique way. One thing too to mention on the GSG is it's got a quad rail on the sides and the bottom, but you can actually remove that and get down to M-LOK underneath that.
Oh,
so which a lot of and that's something that it's really cool. It's unique because they kind of give you the flexibility. Most people see it, you know, see the stock photo of it, or they see it in the shop and it comes like this. And they think, well, it's quad rail, but you can actually just strip that down, and you know you've got a couple different options.
Pretty cool feature, actually.
Yeah.
And that'd be a fun gun just to load up with, stuff just to have fun with, you know, lasers.
It's like we were talking in the last episode, you know, sometimes it's nice to have a gun that's comfortable to shoot.
Right.
You know, it doesn't always have to be that. You know, I mean, don't get me wrong. I like shooting big ones as much as possible too. But you know, it's nice to be able to go out and relax, and you know, especially with the 22s. You know, if you got a can, you throw a can on it. You don't even have to worry about ear protection. Just be out there and you're talking with whoever you're with while you're shooting and having a great time. There's something to be said for that.
Absolutely. I mean, I think we all probably cut our teeth on shooting with 22s, and you know, for me that never really went away. I mean, I grew up shooting 22s all the time, and so when I've kind of went through the evolution of going through the big gun, the bang, you know, the exciting guns, and I'm sort of finding myself migrating back to the rimfire stuff a little bit.
I'm getting old, man. I'm getting back to 22s.
Right.
Yeah.
And for the bigger ones, you get suppressors.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly. Yep. Exactly.
Well, to get to the actual range test with these weapons that Brad set up for us, we're going to go ahead and roll some video here and show what we experienced on the range day that day.
Folks, we're back. We're going to take a look at some ATI products now. We've got some AR platforms, some pistols to look at, and Brad's going to go ahead and give us some ideas about what he's got out here for us. Brad?
All right, so guys, Brad, and I'm a factory representative with American Tactical Inc. And ATI does a lot of great things. They build some firearms in the Carolinas, some AR platforms, and then they also do a little bit of importing, and specifically around their German sport gun program, or the GSG program, as you probably have heard. And the GSG program traditionally has been a 22 long rifle program, but they have expanded into some 9mm programs. We have an MP40 today that's in a 9mm. That's a lot of fun. We're going to shoot that today. And then we're also going to shoot an Omni 410. We're going to shoot a mil-spec 9mm. And then also a GSG 16, along with a few of the 1911 pistols and the ATI GSG Fireflies. So great program, a lot of fun, and they're very affordable. Also, one thing that's really important to talk about with ATI is they have a lifetime guarantee against manufacturer's defects. So if you have any problems with these, you can simply just take it back to your local shop that you bought it from. They'll send it back to ATI. ATI will remedy the problem and send it back. So really good program, made in the USA program for a lot of their different firearms. All right, so I've got the German sport gun 1911 in a 22 long rifle. This might be one of my favorite guns to shoot of everything that I own. It's a very forgiving gun. It operates the same as traditional 1911, so it's got a beaver tail safety, and this gun is super forgiving. It's a lot of fun. I really like it with the can. When I'm running a suppressor, this thing is whisper quiet. So I'm just going to run a few rounds through it now. Really fun gun to shoot.
American Tactical M1911 Military 45 ACP. Do it. Woo! Smooth shooter. Love it. That's where it's at right there. Can't miss with that.
Sweet. Clear.
pretty dope, dude.
1911 GSG 22 caliber. Let's check it out. Clear. Nice gun, very soft.
American Tactical M1911 GI in 9mm. He goes for the 45. I like it.
And again, we are back to 2. Still no Joe. We do want to thank Brad Lines for coming out and filling in real quick and giving us his viewpoint on the ATI line.
Super cool guy.
Yes, he is. He's a great guy. So now what we have is the Rugers.
Yep, Ruger. Now we talked, so far we've gone through the Taurus line, which is very economic, you know. Then we went through the fun line, the ATI, which has a lot of character, a lot of neat things, a lot of cool factors. Now Ruger, everybody knows Ruger pretty much, that's in the gun world. But you know, a lot of people who aren't involved in the gun world don't understand, may not understand what Ruger represents. And Ruger has always been a very nicely priced product that has a tremendous amount of quality. Now this one of America's great gun manufacturers. So what we've got in front of us is we've got a what is this?
This is a Ruger AR-556. This is the MPR model.
And it's not. This isn't your base model. You're going to go up a little bit on this
Correct.
one, right?
Yeah, it's a little bit out of that $500 price range.
Mm-hmm.
But allegedly, there's a gun store I know that's going to have a really good deal on them on Black Friday. So a little bit out of that price range.
Right.
But it does have a little bit of different features than the base model AR-56 with the M-LOK rail and the A2 sight on it. The flip-up rear. It's got a 6-position collapsible on the rear. But just a really super solid shooting AR rifle.
That's what I figured. You know, unlike the previous platform that we were talking about, which is more about recreational. You know, their guns are recreational guns, and their guns that are work guns. Yeah, I have guns in my collection that I do nothing but plink with. You know, you take them out, you shoot them, you have fun with them, but they're not what I would consider serious work guns. And a work gun, and I'm not in the military, I'm not a policeman, I'm not, you know, a competition shooter, I'm not, you know, some G.I. Joe kind of guy, but in my eyes, what a work gun is, a gun that you depend on to defend yourself with. A gun that has to be built solidly, a gun that has a great reputation from a good builder, and that's what this Ruger AR is. You know, it differentiates itself from the entry-level guns, because the entry-level guns that you get for $300-ish or $400-ish, they're not necessarily going to function 100% of the time, every time that you need to pull the trigger and have it go bang. When I want my life, my life depends on a gun. I don't want a recreational gun. I don't want a gun that's a replica or anything. I want a gun that's built to military specs. I want a gun that's been tested by a tested company. That's what this Ruger is, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's kind of a Chevrolet of the AR market there. You know, it's solid, dependable,
and 100% American made.
Actually, I believe that one is Arizona made.
Yeah, baby, Prescott.
Yes, Prescott, Arizona.
All right, and also on the table, what we have are the Security 9 and the EC9. Now, I have not shot the EC9. I have not shot the Security 9, but I have had a lot of people tell me how cool they are, how good they are.
Luckily, I've shot both.
Okay, good. Since Joe's not here.
The EC9 is a great little compact. You know, good pocket gun. It's got a decent trigger pull on it. Something you don't always find on pocket guns. They really did improve the trigger on those when they brought that model out. And for the price point on the EC9, you can't go wrong. I mean, right. It's a great price point, as is the Security 9. The Security 9 is I would honestly say, is a $500 to $600 gun all day long. The price point where they have that Security 9 it is definitely a class leader.
And you know, Ruger does this a lot with their guns. You know, they take guns that you would think would be a lot more expensive, even their revolver lines. Yes. You know, just throughout all their guns, they make really good, affordable guns. Yes. They remind me a lot of like the Mossberg 500. You know, solid guns that run but are not going to kill your pocket. And the EC9, it's the small of the two, and that's what people would consider maybe a backup or a pocket gun size. And then the Security 9 is basically, isn't that a takeoff of the or the evolution of an SR9?
Right, and kind of a mixture of that with the American. They took some of the features off the American series with the Security 9, I believe, with the design of it. Right. But gave it that more stylized design like their American series has.
It's reminiscent. The grips are reminiscent, and the slides reminiscent of the LCP-2. Mm-hmm. It's like a large LCP-2. And when you look at that gun, again, we're going to compare it with the standard of mid-size or compact guns, a Glock 19. Right. And here's a Glock 19 that's going to be about half the price. Now, it's going to be a little bit higher in price point, I think, than the Taurus. But for the, there's some folks that, and I'm one of them, that I prefer to have American-made products. Exactly. When I can buy American, I'll buy American. The EC9 is similar to a Diamondback DB9 Gen 4 that I just purchased recently. That was also an all-American gun. That's one of the reasons I purchased it. It was made in America. So, these are great American products. These are great, affordable price. You're going to go up a little bit when you're talking about an AR that's going to serve as your main rifle. There's no way around that. You're going to want parts that work really well. And, you can build your own. Sure, you can. But if you're not one of those people that tinker in your garage, if you're not one of those people that are really into building guns or that kind of thing, and you want a good, solid gun, you hear about it all the time. Obviously, the AR-15 is America's rifle, and I think that every American should have one, just my opinion. And if you want one and you're not going to spend high-end, top-end operator-type, money, I think this is a great option.
It absolutely is. I think it's one of the better AR platform rifles for the price.
I agree. And the same thing with these two guns that we have right here. Can't say enough about Ruger. And just, you look at the revolver lines and you take a look at what Kimber might do for a revolver as far as price point. And you take a look, it may not be as polished up and as perfect as a Kimber. The trigger may not be great. But you take a look at a Kimber versus a Ruger in revolver comparison, and you take a look at Glock 19 versus Security 9, you get the same kind of comparison. They're both great guns, they work, but one is just a lot more expensive than the other.
Exactly.
And if you're on a budget, you can't beat it. I mean, this thing is what, $250-ish?
Which the
Security 9?
A little bit more than that. They're a little bit over $300.
Okay. But for $300, you're looking at $550 for a Glock. So
exactly.
There you have it.
And then, do you really think that the average gun shooter can differentiate between a $330 gun versus a $550 gun?
I can tell you, I've been shooting guns for, 35, 40 years. And very often, it has to be a really high-end gun for me to be able to tell the difference, anymore. A lot of these guys are putting out polymer striker guns, and they're going to feel, 85 to 90% the same as the other one. The extra 10%, if you're a competitive shooter, if you're going to go ahead and modify your gun anyway for competition or for your own personal carry desires. If you're an experienced shooter and you know your way around a gun, you spend thousands of rounds downrange every month or something like that. Right. Yeah, it makes a difference. Right. But for the average Joe, the average person who needs a gun for self-defense, you're right. I don't know that there's enough of a $200 difference between a Glock and a Ruger Security 9 for the average person to really know. And they're both really dependable guns. Nothing wrong with the Glock, nothing wrong with the Ruger. It's just a matter of, what kind of budget you have for your gun.
Exactly. All right, and as always, well, I shouldn't say as always, because last week our entire 2-hour and 47-minute episode was pretty much the Minuteman segment. But we're going to get back to this week's episode with our actual Minuteman segment. And Phoenix, what have we got?
What we have got is this. And every time we do a podcast, we want to bring up some Second Amendment issues. Anything that's popping up in the news that is worrisome or gun owners should be aware of. And this week it's going to be Joe Biden again. As President Trump says, Creepy Joe is back in the news. And guess what he's coming up with this time? You won't believe it. He wants to ban 9mm semi-automatic guns. He doesn't want to just ban semi-automatic guns. He wants to ban the caliber. And the reason he wants to ban the caliber is because he believes that the 9mm is a military round.
But wasn't it Biden who said after the whole Sandy Hook thing that he was a proponent of the Second Amendment, thinks everybody should have a shotgun in the house? And
if you want to protect yourself, get a double-barrel shotgun.
Oh yeah, Joe flip-flops. It's Arizona. We live in Arizona. We know what flip-flops are. They go flippy-floppy. And that's just the way it is with these gun grabbers. It doesn't matter what it is, as long as they can find a reason. Now, if you notice in the recent news, I want to bring back 3 shootings to you. Okay? I want to bring you back to the Santa Clarita shooting that just happened recently. And of course, as gun lovers, as supporters of the Second Amendment, we don't want to use tragedies as a platform or a springboard or to dance on the graves of people who are deceased or hurt during these incidents. But it is our duty to bring these items to light. We talk about the shooting in Santa Clarita for one reason. The media is bringing out the fact that the .45 ACP caliber gun was used. And then we go back to the Virginia Beach shooting in Virginia, where another .45 ACP along with a suppressor was used. And then we also have the shooting back in LA at the nightclub where a Glock 21 with .45 ACP caliber was used. And these items are brought up in the news, in the media, to condition us to believe that a certain type of gun, whether it be an assault weapon or a certain caliber like .45 ACP, when these familiarities pop up, I always believe there's a purpose behind them. If you take a look at California, and I believe in a couple other states, the 50 caliber handgun or 50 caliber round, period, has been banned. So what happens is people are now, and also magazines have been banned. So now you don't have a regular capacity magazine of 15 rounds or more. You have 10 rounds. And what happens is people say, well, if I'm restricted to 10 or 7 rounds, when I want a larger caliber, I'm going to go with .45 ACP. That's the next largest caliber you can have in these banned states. So you go with .45 ACP, and now they're being used in these shootings. And then now they're saying, hey, let's ban 9mm because 9mm is a military round. And you can see they're just squeezing and squeezing and squeezing and finding reasons to go ahead and reduce our ability to be armed under the Second Amendment. And we have to, as gun owners, as people in general, we have to be aware of the things that are happening in our country. These things aren't happening by accident. They're not happening by coincidence. There's a purpose and an agenda behind it, and we have to be careful to not fall into the trap of, oh, that's a conspiracy or that's false information. Make up your own mind. Look at these things and discern your own conclusions. You know what's happening. I know what's happening. How we view it may not be the same way, but just look at the facts. Why is the press bringing up .45 ACP as a big to-do? Why is Joe Biden coming out there and saying 9mm is a military round and we need to ban it? If you take a look at Mexico, Mexico as a country, civilians cannot have guns in the first place. Not only that, when they do own guns, where it's, wherever it's legal in Mexico to own a gun, you can't own any gun that fires a military round. And it happens a lot across the world. You can own 22s, you can own 12 gauge, but you can't own any gun that will effectively defend you. And that's my Minuteman segment for the week, is just to understand that our rights are being infringed upon, whether you like it or not, and whether you believe it or not. It's up to us to do something about it. And in order for us to do anything about it, we have to be aware of them. And that's what we try to do here. We're not trying to make up your mind. We're not trying to tell you what the news or the truth is. We're presenting you with our ideas of what's happening in the world for you to look at, for you to analyze, for you to dig in. Don't listen to me. Don't listen to Byron. We're not necessarily the experts in the field. We're just seeing what happens. We're seeing what's happening in our country, and we're just bringing these items to you so that you can look at them, to bring awareness so that you can look into it and say, hey, are these guys full of crap, or do they know what they're talking about?
Well, presenting it factually as well.
Yes, sir.
Not presenting it with agenda-based information.
Right, and people look at that and say, hey, man, you guys obviously are, into guns, or you're into gun ownership. But, it's not just guns. It just happens to be we're talking about guns. But when we're talking about rights, it can be anything. So today it's guns, and we happen to like guns. So maybe you're saying, well, it's just guns and they're just crazy gun owners. Tomorrow it might be bicycles. It might be the shirt you're wearing.
Exactly. It's right infringement doesn't have to, like you said, doesn't have to just be firearms. You can't have a soda above 32 inches and above 32 ounces in New York.
Or 32 inches.
Yeah, or 32 inches. Yeah, but they've proven that they have no qualms about going to the mattresses, so to speak, when it comes to taking things from people. And I think that they're going to use ammo as a stipulation more and more in the future, because they can't get the firearms ban through government channels.
I believe Washington passed a tax on ammo.
They did. Washington State just did.
Yeah, and California, obviously, you have to run a 4473, I believe, or
for ammo.
For ammo.
Not
right?
not a 4473 per se, but it is a background check.
Right.
But
you see these things happening, and you can't ignore them.
No, the government, the governor in Virginia, who was just elected the other day, first thing he says is, we're going after guns.
Yeah.
And it is a full-on assault now. And I hate to sound like a conspiracy theorist, because I'm not that type of person, but everything is a conspiracy until it's proven true.
Right. And
as soon as it's proven true, then it becomes fact.
And then it becomes a conspiracy again, because it's true and they're facts. That's the world we live in. That's why we always encourage people. We have this show because we care about our country. We have this show because we care about our own personal rights. And we have this show because we don't want to be like the mainstream media. We're not out here telling you how to think or what to think or what the right and wrong answer is. What we're asking you to do is at least take a moment, listen to what we're saying, and tell us we're full of crap if we are. Comment on our podcast comment section on YouTube and say, hey, you guys are full of crap. You don't know what you're talking about. And that's fine. But if anything else, what we're trying to do is just awaken you and just say, look, man, you got to look at it. You can't ignore it. If you ignore it, then you're giving in. And if you give in, you might as well just have no rights,
Exactly. So at that point, we are going to be wrapping up this month's episode of Kickin' Brass podcast. And episode 5 is going to be one of those episodes that we are just going to go ahead and leave it parked there on the table, and when you see it, you'll see it. We'd like to remind you, please follow us on YouTube, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Kickin' Brass Podcast. Also, Just a Few Reviews. And Johnny Phoenix, it's been a pleasure as always.
Yes, sir. And just remember, guys and gals and ladies and gentlemen, a right's only a right if you exercise it. If you don't exercise your rights, then that's just a bunch of pretty words on parchment paper.
Absolutely. We wish happy and safe holidays to everyone, and we will see you next month.
Yes, sir. Happy holidays, folks.